So, you selected these texts, translated these texts, feel very close to these texts, and then you selected this particular passage for us tonight. And so, would I be right in assuming that this may be a little bit of what Jimpala is doing in his practice in the day? Like, is this a sort of, like, does this inform your practice?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I don't, to be honest, I've never been a big meditator.
Yes.
I don't spend hours. I've done my share of retreats, especially the Vajrayana ones, because you have to be able to perform the rituals. You have to do the retreats of, Guya Samaja, Yamantaka, and all of these, Vajrayogini and Hayagriva. I've done all of them. And I've also done the basic Mundro practice of Guru Yoga, reciting 100,000 times Tsongkhapa's Mitsema verse. But beyond that, my own daily practice is, not sadhanas. Actually, it's I do sadhana once in a while, but it's more about shamatha practice, starting with the intention setting. Then I do my Kandalajama Guru Yoga. Then I do the four immeasurables practice. And then I do a quiet sitting practice for 10 minutes. And then I do a kind of a deeper view practice. And then I end with 8 verses of training the mind and bodhicitta practice. So that's my daily practice. And then where I find practice in some ways more impactful is in the day-to-day life, actually. I mean, it's, I constantly read, and so, I'm a big fan of the Indian Buddhist classics. So my part of my practice is not confined to sitting. Yeah.
This is a day in the life of Jimba. Very nice. I can't help but ask. You said, and then at some point you do a deeper view practice.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that like?
It's I will either read the Heart Sutra and do it, or I'll take a passage from Nagarjuna's Mulakarika. So I choose one, or from a verse from Tsongkhapa. And then His Holiness sometimes says that you can even use the 8 verses on mind training, because it starts with Dane Simjen Tamjala. In the Tibetan version, the first word in this 8 verses of mind training is self. He says you can just chant the first line, Dane Simjen Tamjala, and then you stop there and you analyze the self. I haven't done that, because for me, 8 verses mind training is, I don't associate it too much with the view.
Yeah.
It's more the heart bodhicitta practice.
So you're getting something that really you can get the taste of.
Yeah.
And then you're getting that feeling, that inspiration, and then that becomes the practice.
Yeah.
Nice. And then, so this is your daily practice, and then you like to bring it into your day.
Yeah.
And then what about bringing it into your work? You're so prolific, like all these books, we're filming a course. How do you bring, where do you find time? So then in your day, when are you writing?
I may be revealing a bit too much of myself, but I like to get up early in the morning. And when I was in the monastery, I wasn't considered an early riser, because I get up around 6:30. And in the monasteries, people get up around 4:30 or 5. So I was a late riser. But when I moved to the West, I was impressed. I'm an early riser. So I get up around 6:30, and then after my breakfast around 7, I spend an hour, first half-hour practice, another hour or half reading quietly, and that's when nobody's up in the family, at home, and it's a very quiet time, and then I start my work around either 8:30 or 9. And then when I'm working, I'm actually quite focused. I don't touch my emails until I've done 3 or 4 hours of work, or 2 hours of work at least. Because emails, the moment you open it, you get reactive and so many things. But if you don't know, I've always, had this kind of been very clear about the morality. For example, like in the old days, when people had landlines, telephone, there was an answer machine or the caller ID, and I refuse to have caller ID. Because if you have a caller ID and if you know someone is calling, if you don't pick it up, you feel bad. But on the other hand, if you don't have a caller ID, you don't know who's calling, and if you don't feel like picking it up, you don't feel bad. So same principle applies to email. I don't touch email unless I, consciously. So I spend the first 2 or 3 hours work very productively. And because I have been very fortunate to be able to work on the kind of work that I do, and Eric is here. Eric's foundation has supported me. Nita Ing's foundation has supported my work. And I'm very privileged to be able to really kind of do the work that I do. And because there is a joy in the work that I do, and I notice that when there is joy, there's much less tiredness. And it's a simple fact of human psychology. So, people sometimes, like some of my Tibetan colleagues, accuse me of being a workaholic, but I would rather take that badge, because if I'm stressed and then still working, and then of course it's something else, but I actually enjoy. It's very rewarding. And also many of the Tibetan text editing works, I feel very grateful and to have this opportunity, and also I rejoice in the possibility that with my reformatting and editing of these texts will be used for generations to come. So that's the kind of, Tsongkhapa says that rejoicing is the cheapest ways to earn good merit, So, and I think that's probably, and I work probably 8 to 9 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah, or 8.5 hours. Yeah.
The secret is like finding joy in your work.
Yeah. And weekends I don't touch emails.
Yeah. So then,
yeah. So, and then I don't work during weekends, but I do read. So.
Yeah. So this word joy, it seems like one of the favorite words of yours.
Yes.
And also, something that people associate with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, is rejoicing one of the practices that bring you joy? Is there other ways that you sort of raise joy in your life?
Well, I think if you have to see the purpose of what you're doing. Yeah, so that's, once you see the purpose of what you're doing, the work can be very fulfilling. Yeah. So that's, joy need not necessarily be an elated sense of, pleasant experience. Joy can also take the form of a deep sense of fulfillment. Yeah. So that's what I mean by joy. It's, sometimes there's a pleasant experience that goes with it, but it need not necessarily be accompanied by a pleasant experience.